Hi, welcome back to SQL Server 2016 Administration and the Advanced Administration section. This is the area on extended events, and in this video we'll look at how we can view and analyze our extended event data. In this video we want to learn how we can actually view the XE data that we've captured and stored in one of our targets. And then we want to learn how to perform a basic analysis of some of our data. As we mentioned in previous videos, this data is buffered in memory, so when we view target data we may not see all of the data immediately because some of it will be buffered in memory and hasn't been sent to the target. If we view data from a file target that's been closed, we'll actually see all the data there. Now, some of the targets, as we've mentioned, only have that data available while the session is running, so we can view those live. Each target, though, does have a view target data item when we right-click it. Now, this data does not always refresh itself when it's being pulled from a live session, so we have to be aware of that, but we can set a refresh interval, or we can manually refresh data. Management Studio does include the ability to load and manipulate some of the XE data, and so that can be useful when we're trying to perform an analysis. We can group and aggregate and filter out data, or we can export it for use in other tools like Excel. So let's look at how we can view some data and do a basic analysis. Here we are back in Management Studio, and we've got our extended event sessions listed. So I've got this packed session. If I want to look at something like the ring buffer, you'll see I view target data, but I can't view that right now. If I start this session, however, though, what I can say is view target data, and then I'll see some information. Now you'll notice at the top, the target data is not refreshed. I can right click here to manually refresh this. So I would right click this area and say refresh, or I can set an interval. We won't really look at that. In general, we won't use those. Most of the time we'll be analyzing data in the file. So let's look at this. If I say view target data in here, I have a bunch of information that pops up. You can see I have a number of columns. And he says I'm displaying 103 events out of 1585. So I've got a filter in place here, and this filter is from some of my testing. So if I come here to the extended events menu, I can hit filters, and we'll see that we're looking for CPU time greater than 10. So if I were to actually clear this out, say OK, now I'm displaying 1585 events. So I'm seeing all the events right now. Now you'll notice for each of these events, once I click on them, I see more information down here. So this tells you there are more columns available. If I were to right click up here, you'll see I have a choose columns item. I also have an extended events choose columns item there. And I can pick which columns that I want to show. For example, maybe I care about duration as well. And I'll put that in there. And once I say OK, I see all these items. So I can view and kind of analyze this data. Now I can sort this column any way I want. Often I'll sort by time, and I'll be looking at this information. So I can see what order things occurred in. I may try to group items as well. So for example, I can group by this column, and if I do that, you'll see that all of my events kind of jump up, and I see a count here of how many events have occurred here. So if I'm looking at logins, I see 21 logins and 22 logouts. Well, that's a little bit funny. Somebody logged in or didn't log out. I have the ability to do some aggregations though as well. So in the extended events menu, I have a grouping menu where I can group by multiple columns. So maybe I care about database name as well. And you'll see when I do that, get slightly different information, but not a ton. Most of this information has been happening in master. I do have the ability to just change that on demand. So maybe I care about the object name. And if we do that, we'll see that I have some different object names here. So my different items pop up to the top here. I also have the ability to do some aggregation. So these other columns that aren't being grouped by, maybe I want to do an aggregation. So maybe I want to say, what is the max duration there? And when I do that, you'll see that for this particular grouping, right, RPC completed for the SP described parameter encryption item, there's a maximum of 2732 in the duration. I can do the minimum, I can do counts of these as well. And that allows me to perform some analysis to figure out what's actually going on. Earlier I had that filter where I actually had come in here and said, well, let's look at CPU time, which is here, and we'll set that to be greater than, let's say, 60, I think was what I had. We'll apply that, and that reduces the number of items. So then I can very quickly see what's going on and look at some of these items. You can see that I have a filter here at the top, and certainly if I wanted to remove some of the grouping out of here because I want to just see the raw data, I can do that. I can try to decide what's going on. So if I sort by duration, and I say, let's do descending. What's the worst one? So some of my logout took some amount of time here, which is interesting to go. Something was being closed out and it took some time there. This allows me to view and analyze some of this data as needed. Now this is the live data from there. I could have other items available. So if I do a file open, you'll see here I've got some files here. For example, let's look at this login event file. When I do that, what I'll see is, again, just a few columns in here, and maybe I want to, in fact, add some additional columns. So database name, and I want client host name and server principal name. So I can put those up there so I can see what's going on. You can see for the most part, it's just been me logging into the system, but there are a few other accounts in there. So maybe what we want to do is group by this column to see how many times somebody's logged in. So let me try to figure out what's going on with this user, right? Maybe I care about them or SA. It's a lot of logins for SA. I can very quickly see perhaps that's unusual on my system. The other thing I want to be able to do is export this data. So if I go to the extended events menu at the very bottom, I have an export. I can export back to an XCL file. I can send it to a table in another database or another instance, or I can set it out as a CSV file. So I can pull this data into Excel where a security individual or somebody else may be more comfortable actually doing some analysis. The last thing I want to say is when I do an open, I can merge multiple files. So I can pick a bunch of files to look at. So maybe I want to look at all of these object change files and open those. And I can load all of those up as one set of files. So 4 files here, and there's only 8 events across these 4 files because I don't change objects that often. But this would allow me to perform analysis across multiple files if I had had a rollover or I was trying to analyze a large amount of data that I'd captured in a session that had spanned different times the session had run and stopped. Again, there's a lot you can do with this. This is Management Studio. It gives me some capabilities for analyzing data. I may actually pull much of this data into somewhere like Excel, though, where I can perform more detailed analysis. And that completes our extended event section. We talked about the extended event architecture and how to set up sessions, and as well as use templates to set up our sessions. We examined the different targets that were available for our data and what the use for each was. We talked about the options that allow us to customize sessions as far as which data we capture, how we may filter it in the capture with predicates, as well as how we may ensure that we don't overload the server by using extended event sessions that use too much memory. And we talked about how Management Studio can analyze and view data. And then there's a lot more to learn. There are resources that were provided in some of the videos. So as you continue on learning more about SQL Server 2016 administration and you need to use extended events, please continue with your learning. In our next video, we'll start a section on execution plans in the Query Store.